Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Lacey Starling and I'm the president and CEO of Link NKY. I'm so very excited to see everyone out tonight to learn more about youth mental health in Northern Kentucky. This is a really important topic. It's also one that's very near and dear to me. I have a 14-year-old daughter who is facing all the same struggles that all the teenagers in the universe are facing right now. And I'm facing all of the struggles that a parent of a teenager is facing in the world right now. So I am going to be furiously taking notes in this session, as I know all of you are. A couple of things real quick. So on your program, there's a QR code that says get involved in today's conversation. That's how we do questions. So there's an app when you scan that QR code and you can submit questions through the app. You can also upvote other people's questions. So if someone's already asked a question that you really want to see answered, please upvote that question because the more votes it gets, the more likely it is to be answered. Also, everyone at home watching on Facebook, you can participate as well. So our producer will be dropping the link into the chat so that you can ask questions and participate in the conversation just as if you were here in the audience today. So we really like this technology to allow everybody, whether you're in the room or at home, to participate in our conversations. I am also responsible for thanking the folks who make these events possible. So these events are not cheap or easy to put on, and we rely on the support of community partners to help us afford to be able to do this and to keep it free for our community members. So I really want to give a big thank you to Fisher Homes, who is our venue sponsor. St. Elizabeth Healthcare is our speaker sponsor for this evening. Our audience participation sponsor is GBS. They're the ones who sponsor the Pigeonhole app that we use for our audience participation. The Northern Kentucky Forum is our partner in these events. And then Executive Transportation, Gateway College, and Republic Bank are also sponsors for this event. We also could not do what we do without the support of the community. So we are in the middle of a little fundraising campaign at Link NKY right now. We fund 75% of our operations through advertising and sponsorship sales. So when you see ads on our website and ads in our print publication, that funds 75% of our operations. The other 25% has to come from the community. So on the program that you have tonight, there's another QR code where you can donate tax-deductible dollars. Those dollars can only go to support public interest reporting and events like what we're doing tonight. They can't pay me. They don't put coffee in the coffee machine at the office. They don't pay for any of our overheads. It is strictly for public interest reporting and events like this. So if you see value in these types of events and the coverage that we do in our super issues and our daily reporting, I would encourage you. Every dollar helps us meet our mission here in Northern Kentucky. So that's enough from me. You're not here to listen to me talk, but you are here to hear from our great panelists. And so our moderator tonight is Evan Millward. He has been our moderator for all of these community conversations that we've done, and we're so lucky to have him participate in these community conversations with us. So, Evan.
I think they've all been important, so thank you for having me. Thank you for coming out. This might be the biggest crowd we've had so far, and I think that's a testament to how important this conversation is. We call these community conversations. Oh, I broke it. I have no effect on technology.
Oh, there's
This is like being on
the rapid work.
I am green. Okay, I'm very loud, so sorry to everyone on Facebook who probably can't hear me, but the rest of you can. I have lots of practice projecting. So thank you all for being out here. This is a community conversation that feels a little bit different than some of the other ones we've done already, and we'll do over the rest of the course of this calendar year, because it is so personal on so many levels. So the layout and the flow of this is a little bit different. If you've been to any of our prior ones, I personally I lean toward action at all times. And so I want to at least try to get to some takeaways quickly. But before we get there, we have to set the table, as it were, that we're all about to sit at, and find out where we are and what some of the issues are and what some of the folks you're going to hear from who are on the front lines of this and kind of coming up with the creative solutions are seeing. Then we'll bring all of them up and we're going to kind of talk amongst ourselves as you guys think of questions and put them in the app. I get to see all those questions when you upvote them, like Lacey said, and that means you at home on Facebook as well. It comes to the top of the app. So if you see a question that you wanted to ask, instead of asking the same question, upvote it, it pops up and it puts it at the top. So I see it quickly. We'll do probably 30 minutes of talking with our panelists, and then I'll start asking some of your questions from the app. Please don't get offended if you raise your hand. I'm not going to call on you. We use this app, this website link. We do have, if you don't have a smartphone or a tablet, we do have some note cards, I think, that they can enter them in for you. So, but don't get offended if you're raising your hand and we're not calling on you. We're trying to keep it this way so that we kind of respect our panelists' time, because we don't have a ton of time and there is so much we can talk about. What's really different and exciting about this for me, because this is such a personal and at times intimate conversation, we have allowed a lot of time at the end for sort of one-on-one. So if you have a question you want to directly ask, or maybe something you don't want to bring up in front of the crowd or have me read out loud for all of us here in Facebook to hear in perpetuity, you can grab our panelists one-on-one, or if you are looking for resources, we've got, I think, about 10 groups here in the back at the end, where you'll have about 30 or so minutes to kind of hang with them. So that's the flow of the evening. I think it's going to be good. I hope we all take something away from this that's actionable. That's the goal, right? That's what we talked about when we were doing some pre-planning for this. With that, I do want to set the table, and I am not the expert by any stretch of the imagination, so I want to introduce Brittany Apke, who is with St. Elizabeth Physicians, has been doing social work in this space particularly for like 15 years, and she is got all sorts of things to show us and help us understand where we are at right now. So Brittany, let's take the mic.
Thank you. All right, can you guys hear me? Okay, good, okay. All right, guys, hi, I'm Brittany, and I am so glad that I was asked to be part of this community event. I am a therapist with St. Elizabeth, specifically at the Florence Pediatric Office, and I work with youth to support them through navigating their mental health and behavioral challenges. Mental health challenges are the leading cause of disabilities and poor life outcomes in young people. Up to 1 in 5 children ages 3 to 17 in the US have a mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral disorder. Between 2007 and 2018, suicide rates among youth 10 to 24 in the US increased by 57%. So I think that's a really important statistic to look at. So let's talk about the history of mental health in Northern Kentucky. Stigma and lack of access to care seems to be the popular answers when we ask people that question for why mental health challenges weren't addressed as much in the past. These examples still ring true, and we have to continue to break these barriers, especially with our youth, in order to set them up for success in all ways possible. People also need to be ready, willing, and motivated to accept the help and to do the work. So in history and current, there's been a lot of uneducated and awful stereotypes around and stigma related to mental health treatment, diagnosis, and the helpfulness of medication management. So we're really trying to break that. That's a lot of the history, and we're seeing that as being the current stuff too. Regarding the current landscape of mental health in Northern Kentucky area, this is a very broad and necessary topic. I am very inspired by mental health challenges and problem solving with those I work with to gain healthier lives, and this is what I see. COVID. Let's talk about COVID. The state of our world during COVID produced a lot of anxiety, depression, stress, and behavior concerns in children and us as adults. If you struggled during that time during COVID, imagine how these kids felt. It produced uncertainty, stress, confusion, isolation, and in some cases, trauma. Global events, the increase of natural disasters, the floods, the storms, all of that stuff going on too, it also creates a lot of anxiety and stress in children that I have personally been seeing a big uptick in lately as well in my practice. And again, these experiences produce uncertainty, stress, confusion, isolation, and trauma. The rural counties, they do have less access to treatment in history and still today, while also there being advancement in getting more resources to mental health in those areas. I do believe access to telemedicine such as like video visits has been a very helpful increase to accessing care in those counties, and as well as school-based therapy options. Specifically, I know in our Grant County area, CH&K opened up down there, and that was just such a big, huge, helpful impact to that, to do outpatient groups, individuals, medication management for the kids in like the rural county areas as well too. So we are making advancements in that. The number of providers in Northern Kentucky have increased significantly in the last 10 years, and I see this personally as a therapist as well too. I work very hard to partner with community partners and agencies so I can refer children and families when I have reached a capacity, or if I feel that my services aren't intense enough, and I can get them connected to some other treatments. So we really work hard for that, and there are resources out there. We have to invest in these kids. You know, a lot of people talk about the financial burdens with treatment, but think about it as an investment, like that return on investment that you're really working towards for their present day and even their future. So yes, therapy can be expensive, treatment can be expensive, yes, but the positive benefits of that and the outcomes are exponentially worth it. I really do believe. So the recent uptick in mental health, let's talk about that. Unlimited access to phones and screens, unsupervised access to that as well too. That's a really big issue that I do see. I have those conversations daily in my office with parents and caregivers, and I know that it's even hard. I have several friends that are teachers, and you know, they tell me it's even hard to kind of control that in school as well too. So I think that is a huge issue. You know, we talk about social media and just kind of what they're seeing on their influences of body image and influences of comparing, and you know, just all the trends that aren't healthy and aren't great for them to be doing as well too. So we really need to be honing in on privacy is important, yes, but kids don't need that much privacy. They need to be checked on and looked at of what they're accessing with their phones. I'm very passionate about these next things too. Not prioritizing healthy, consistent sleep. I believe that sleep is the foundation of us as human beings, and these kids I see, they're just staying up all hours of the night on their phones, more so. They're telling me their hours that they're sleeping, and you know, there's education around, you know, young kids and teens and adolescents on like the appropriate amount of hours to sleep a night that's just healthy for growth and brain development, and that's just not prioritized. Healthy eating and healthy relationships with food needs to be prioritized. Healthy friendships and connections, not enough exercise and not enough movement. So I think those things are really big upticks in mental health as well too when we look at that at a deeper level. As well as not utilizing creative things or hobbies and not having just general positivity in their life. Furthermore, unrealistic expectations and pressures that adults and society put onto these children, they're just pushed too hard. They're pushed past their limits, and they're pushed past what they're capable of doing to kind of reach this hypothetical college application or college resume that they're working towards. So we really need to kind of take a step back on that sometimes, I feel as well too, because that push and those expectations are causing them to not sleep or not eat, or you know, their social stuff is kind of impacted by that as well. So, solutions of mental health crisis in Northern Kentucky: talk to your kids. I ask the question a lot, like, how often do you like just talk to your child or your teen and like ask them about their day? Not just like how their day was, but what made you happy today? Did anything make you feel frustrated? Did anything make you feel sad? Those questions aren't happening, at least that I'm hearing. They could be happening, right? But definitely not enough, and more specifically with the teenagers. I think that you know, our littles are very important to teach them to communicate their feelings and words and stuff, but these teens, they're shut out, and we just kind of give them free range sometimes to just do, or we don't want to bother them. Like, bother them. Get in their business. Get in their faces in a good way. But yeah, just talk to them, really listen and be open-minded, not judgmental, and don't take things personally if your child is struggling. It is not about you always as the parent. I see that a lot. It's like a personal attack to these parents that like their kids are struggling, or I get this question a lot, like, what do they have to be sad about? I give them all these things, right? And it's not about that, right? It's just not about that. So don't take that personally as a parent. It's about all the other small factors that add up in their life. And if you are a part of their struggle, if you are a part of their trauma, because that happens too, get help with them. There's tons of resources out here for family supports, family counseling. I refer to the Family Nurturing Center a lot for a lot of that stuff as well too. I mean, there's tons of resources around that. So you as the parent, take care of your mental health as well. That is a solution in the crisis of mental health youth. If you're not handling your stuff, your kids aren't seeing that you're taking care of yourself, so then they're just like, well, what's the point, or what, it's not prioritized, it's not important. So take care of your stuff too. Ask right out, regarding suicide, ask right out if they're suicidal. Ask right out if they're hurting themselves. Do a body check. That's okay, appropriately. And if they're having thoughts of harming other people as well too, of course. So research suggests that talking about suicide actually may reduce rather than increase suicidal thoughts. So a lot of people think that if I mention it, it's going to give them ideas. We're not planting seeds here. The seeds are already out there. You're not planting a seed by asking if they're suicidal. You're bringing it up to where then they can say yes, or they can talk about it. There's tons of research around that people are so relieved to talk about these thoughts and these feelings that they're having internally. So talk to them, listen, and be open, and get them the professional help. I know as a therapist, I cannot be my friends and family therapist. It just doesn't work. There's too many bias. There's too much, relational conflict and stuff there sometimes too. So get that third-party professional help. It really can save a lot of their lives and improve your relationship with your child as well too. Help them connect to somebody. So the National Suicide Call or Text Line is 988. This has recently been changed, and I love that it's changed. Medical emergency 911, mental health emergency 988. Super easy. They can call, they can text it. The resources are out there and they're available. And again, reiterating, invest in your children. Lots of agencies, you can get some financial support. You can do payment plans. Just don't let that piece stop you from getting help. Don't be solutions, right? Still, don't be dismissive or invalidating to their feelings, ignoring the behavior. I teach on this a lot. So all unwanted behavior is the direct result of an unmet need. If your kids are acting out, if they're angry, if they have attitude all the time, there's something else going on. Again, don't take it personal. It's not about, it could be about you. You could be just making them frustrated all the time. But it's not all about you. Like I said, there's factors. They're in school. School's hard, right? Again, I have lots of connections into the schools. School's tough for these kids. There's pressures, there's expectations. Again, what's going on their phone, right? What are they all influenced by? Sports and all that kind of stuff. So if they're having these behaviors, dig deeper. Do they need a hug? Do they need a nap? Do they need a snack? Do they need to just be listened to? Are they feeling unimportant? Are they feeling ignored? Jealousy is huge if there's siblings that are getting a little bit more attention, or maybe you're working a lot and that's fine, but there's actually a lot of research too on 10 minutes of quality time with your kid. 10 minutes, guys. If you carve out 10 minutes of uninterrupted, no screens, no nothing, take a walk, color, play a game, just sit and talk. 10 minutes of quality time is a huge impact on them feeling connected to you. And who doesn't have 10 minutes in a day? We think we don't, but don't scroll for 10 minutes and there's your 10 minutes time, right? So there's a lot there to do. Be active in their lives. Like I said, get in their face, get in their business. Be positive, lots of positive affirmations. I teach on that a lot too. I'll write Post-it notes in my office with the kid and have them take it home and put it in their house somewhere, on their mirror, their room or something. Know who your children are talking to, know who they're around, what's influencing them positively and negatively. Again, not just, hey, how was your day? What's making you feel happy? Is anything making you feel uncomfortable? That'll open up conversations. It might take a while, right, for them to open up, but keep pushing that. Early interventions, let's talk about that. So early interventions are great. The brain is developing until it's 25 years old. So when we get these kids in therapy and in treatments early on, they still have this developing and growing brain. learning concepts like cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness practices, like learning things like that is going to be, they're going to catch on so much quicker. They're going to be able to rewire that brain from negative to positive so much quicker with these early interventions because they have that growing brain, right? It's a lot harder if you start therapy at 40, you have decades of stuff to be sifting through, right? And it just takes a little bit longer. So these early interventions, like even at 3 years old, if you're having some behaviors with a 3-year-old, you think it's abnormal and not age appropriate, like talk to somebody about it, like get some support with that. But early interventions, I think, is just like one of these #1 things that we can do for these kids and try to like prevent, right? If we can give them some healthy coping skills now as a teenager or as a child, adolescent, we're setting them up for success as an adult, right? How many adults do we know, or us personally, that don't know how to regulate our emotions, right? Why are we expecting these kids to do that if we can't even do it as an adult, right? So early interventions, giving them those coping skills. So I work for SANE, you see, representing SANE. What can SANE specifically do to help? So if your child has a pediatrician with St. Elizabeth, you can speak with your doctor and about the challenges your child's facing, the struggles. It could be mental health, behavioral, whatever. If there's anything related to that, talk to your pediatrician. And you will be referred to the clinical social worker in the office. So if you're at the Florence Pediatric office, that's me. We have like 22 of us or so spread throughout the primary care offices, and there's pediatric doctors kind of spread through all out too. So there's one of me in all of these offices. And if it's not me, we're gonna get you connected to somebody like me. So talk to your doctors, and if you're not with St. Elizabeth, I know that the other pediatricians in the area are trying to get some therapy connected with that as well too. So talk with your doctor, start there. We are implementing mental health into primary care and medical practices because of that reason, right? A lot of people go to their doctors and talk about stuff that's not medical related, and start there. If you don't know where to start, go to your doctor, start there. Your child will then be connected to therapy, like I said, in office, or if we can't do it, we'll refer you to somebody in the community. We have so many great community partners in the area that work with kiddos. And psychiatry as well too. We actually have a couple of our psychiatrists that's here tonight that work with kiddos. And that is with our St. Elizabeth Behavioral Health part, and our doctors can, the pediatricians or any of the SANE doctors, they can refer to St. Elizabeth Behavioral Health as well, and we can help you in that aspect too if medication management is a direction that you choose to go with your kid. And again, breaking the stigmas around medication management, right? Therapy is great, holistically, working through all of that, but we also need to recognize that chemically, we can't help what's chemically going on in the brain, and that's where that medication piece can come into play too. So your pediatrician can do general medication management, and if you need something more intensive, we'll get you connected to the behavioral health department with St. Elizabeth or some other resources in the area as well. Every child needs a safe adult, right? Be that safe adult for them. And if it's not your personal child, nieces, nephews, just neighborhood kids, if you're a teacher, be that safe adult for your kid, because every child needs that. And again, just being listened to. Just listen to them. They're struggling. Even if you don't think they're struggling, they're struggling. If you think your kid's happy and healthy, that's all great, but there's going to be a struggle there. Again, school's hard, life's hard, what they're watching going on in the world is really hard. Just listen to them and be that very safe adult for them. Credible sites, we all want to go to the internet, obviously, to Google and look up stuff, so I just really encourage some credible sites. St. Elizabeth does have the Activating Hope page. If you get on St. Elizabeth's site, it has tons and tons of stuff on there, tons of links that'll take you everywhere else to kind of whatever you're looking for. So credible is evidence-based research stuff to kind of go towards. If you've heard of NAMI, Mental Health of America, the Mayo Clinic. So make sure if you're Googling and looking up some stuff that you're looking at credible stuff, not some blog, not somebody's opinion on stuff. Like, look up some credible stuff with that as well too, just to kind of help your teen in whatever direction that you feel you need to go. So thank you. That's all I have.
Hang out with us up here a little bit. Thank you for kind of giving us what you see on a daily basis
Yeah.
and where we're at. I want to bring up the rest of our panel now, have them come up, and then we'll get into it a little bit. So I'm going to start, Millie McGlone, come on up. Millie's a youth ambassador with a little group called HEY. That stands for Hopeful Empowered Youth. Crystal Luegers is with CHNK Behavioral Health, the Chief Program Officer. And then Ross Meyer, the Vice President for Strategy for Interact for Health, joining us up here. You know, I meant to do this when we first started, but just get a little bit of a gut check, because we're all here to kind of talk about mental health and supporting each other. And I want to get a gut check from you all, and then I'll ask them too. How are you? And for those in the audience, how are you? And if you want to give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or as my high school janitor coined the term, about half, which was his go-to answer for that question. How you doing? About half. And I never knew what that meant, but I think we all live in that space. Somehow we all know what that means. How is everyone? Thumbs up, thumbs down today?
I'm happy.
Good? About half? I think we're about half. Hopefully by the time we're done here, we're at least about half and we're all a thumbs up. You know, we ask everyone who's using Pigeonhole an introductory question. We ask kind of like why you're here and what you hope to learn here. So I actually want to ask each of you the same question too, is why are you here, other than someone asked you to be here to share some expertise? And what do you want to take away as someone who kind of exists in this space of resources and solutions? And Millie, I'll start with you.
I'm here because, well, one, I was asked to. Two, just to kind of get a youth perspective on this, because I feel like that's very important to have.
We couldn't do it without it.
To have that youth voice, so that you can know somebody who relates to this issue. I hope to learn some more technical things, because I'm not trained in the same way that these people are trained. I'm just a young person who is in HEY, so.
I like that. It's fun to say. I mean, hey, I'm just here to be a sponge. I like it. Crystal?
Yeah, so I'm here to represent CHNK Behavioral Health. So sometimes we end up being kind of a community best kept secret. So I love to be able to participate in events like this and collaborate with other providers and share a little bit about what we do. In terms of takeaways, I am a person that the simplest answer is the hardest to find for me. You know, I can really kind of get way outside of the zone of establishing simplistic solutions that are applicable. And I've got to say, I was so incredibly impressed with everything you shared. I was like, where is my notebook? I want to feverishly be taking notes, because getting back to basics, like thinking about healthy diet and connection and all of those things, for me, sometimes I can just get way beyond that, both as a parent and a provider. So I was really grateful for everything you shared. So I think I got what I was hoping to get, but obviously hoping to glean more.
All right, thank you all. Good night.
I'll email you.
Ross?
Yeah. So I'm here wearing a couple hats. I think first, most important, is a father of 3 teenage boys. So I'm very much living this every day and trying to figure out how can I best show up for them and what they need in this journey. I'm also here working in partnership with Millie and literally dozens of youth and hundreds of organizations across the region in the HEY, Greater Cincinnati effort, Hopeful Empowered Youth, which has been a tremendous movement building in our community across so many organizations and caring people and youth themselves to really drive change, positive change for our youth. So I'm not a therapist or a counselor. We have folks that have the expertise, but I've learned a lot listening to young people in our community and those on the front lines of tackling this issue. So I'm eager to continue that conversation and learn more tonight, and hopefully share some insights that I've learned along the way.
Brittany, we heard a little bit from you, but
Yeah.
what are you hoping to take away?
Kind of, yeah, the same. I'm, as you can tell, I'm very passionate to talk about this stuff, and I just love every aspect of my job for the most part. No, I think just like the education piece, I'm really hopeful that what you guys are hearing tonight, you're touched by it, you tell your friends, tell your, kind of give some education to them, because our youth is literally our future. of our world, and we just, I'm here to answer questions or provide whatever you guys are interested in tonight, and hearing from everybody else as well too.
I think one thing that has come up, and you mentioned it in your sort of table setting, and I think we're already starting to get some questions, which it's a good time to remind you to use Pigeonhole. You at home on Facebook can use that as well, to start putting those questions in, because after we talk amongst ourselves a little bit, I'm going to take your questions and present them to you guys as well. But I don't know that I know a single family unit, a single school, a single church, a single sports team, youth sports team, that isn't trying to have these conversations as a unit. And so I'm curious how you tailor this conversation. Maybe you're coming at it from a sports perspective, or you're coming at it from the faith perspective, from the church, or you're coming at it, maybe these aren't your kids, but they're all over at a sleepover at your house. And we know they're talking about it. So how do you tailor these conversations? Is it important? How does that conversation go, is my question.
Okay, so I think that this conversation needs to be really just raw. Like, this conversation needs to be a raw conversation, needs to be a heartfelt conversation about mental health. It needs to be about what you're talking about. It needs to be just raw.
That means it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy, but it needs to be raw.
Anyone else have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think absolutely, Millie. It needs to be real, right? Authentic, vulnerable. It needs to happen, to your point, everywhere, right? Yeah. On the soccer field, right? In the classroom, at church, wherever young people are, right? This is a conversation that shouldn't just be happening in the therapist's office, right? We need our therapists to help along the journey, but all of us, especially parents, need to be better equipped to be that safe and trusted adult, right, in the lives of the youth that are around us. And that's what we've heard time and time again from the youth in our community. Fortunately, mental health for their generation has been significantly destigmatized, right? They're talking about it in a way that even my generation was not. But the adults, the parents, not so much, right? We're really much of the problem sometimes.
I agree.
And I think being that safe, trusted adult, starting by listening, seeking to understand, right, not judge, is the first step. And I think we need to have that conversation wherever young people are, not just in the doctor's office or the therapist's office.
How about this? What's the first question you should ask a kid then?
I can jump into that. I think about initiating a conversation with someone who's struggling and having the conversation, in a really raw, real way of saying, how are you? And doing that check-in. I often hear people talking about, I'm concerned about her, she seems off, or, I noticed that I've noticed a change in that particular child. I don't know if I want to pull him aside. I think he might feel uncomfortable, or I know that family just experienced a loss. I might want to pull that child aside. They might feel uncomfortable. The interesting question to ask is, are they going to feel uncomfortable, or are you going to feel uncomfortable? And I think when we're evaluating, are we feeling uncomfortable? Okay, then how are we educating ourselves to be able to respond in a caring and supportive way? It's nothing special, right? It's relating to another person like a human being and saying, how are you? I want to check in.
How do you break through? Because I bet we're all guilty. I know I'm guilty of it. How are you? And I go, hanging in. All right, I'm good. How do you break through the default response from someone when they just give you the canned answer that we give everyone 30 times a day?
I love to give education on vulnerability. So we talk about anger, right? Anger is so easily expressed. It's easy. It's the easiest emotion to just put out there, but all the other emotions require us to be vulnerable, and just that raw conversation with that. So it's, instead of having that behavior, it's like, hey, I'm feeling really frustrated because school was hard today, or I feel really stupid because I didn't get a good grade or something, or people are, that takes a vulnerable conversation. And what I hear a lot from kids is they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for sharing their feelings, or get a privilege taken away, or they're dismissed, they're invalidated. Don't worry about that. You'll be fine. Not a big deal. It's a big deal to them. If they're mentioning it, it's a big deal. Don't invalidate it and don't dismiss it. So yeah, like that education around vulnerability. Brene Brown, if anybody is familiar with her, she has really great TED Talks and a documentary. She's researched shame and vulnerability, and they're 20-minute clips each, and I give my kids that all the time as kind of a homework assignment to watch those clips, and even tell the parents as well too, because we have to teach that vulnerability. It's not going to get anywhere if they're not, because it's going to be surface level.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
fine.
I'm fine.
I'm okay. Hanging in there. Yeah, like, but it's not true.
I think I love that.
Yeah.
Brittany. Vulnerability is how you start to establish trust, right? And I think it's on us to often extend that first, right?
Yeah.
To offer that vulnerability first, right? And to be real, to communicate in that relationship that you can be authentic and real with me, right?
Right.
When you asked at the beginning, Evan, how we're doing, I was right in the middle, right? I'm not here because if you notice, I rolled in a little bit late. I was stuck in rush hour traffic. It took me 3 times as long as it should have taken me to get here, and I hate being late. I'm a little bit flustered, right? Off my game. So I'm not coming in like all happy-go-lucky, right? So I think just being honest and extending that first
Yeah.
to say, this is what I'm dealing with,
Yeah.
right? It communicates to the other person that, okay, they can have a real conversation with me, right? They're not just gonna give me, oh, everything's great.
And there's repair with that too. If you yell, be like, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have done that. You don't deserve that. I'm going to try harder next time to take a breath and walk away or do something, and we can have this conversation later. Like, repair, apologize. Take away the ego with that, right? Like, we're allowed to mess up. I mean, I have a 5 and a 1-year-old. Like, I teach this stuff every day, and I lose patience, and there's frustration. Not with my baby, but, you know, my partner. But, and I have to remind myself, too, like, and I apologize and say, you didn't deserve that. Let's talk about it. Like, let's hug, whatever you need right now. Like, just repair. Yeah. Because we're not perfect. It's not an expectation
We're all
either.
human, yeah.
I have parents all the time, well, I'm not a perfect parent. I'm like, I'm not asking you to be. I love my kid. Love's not in the question. I'm not questioning that you love your child. That's never a question that I have, right? Like, it's, yeah, what can we do?
I think, Brittany, you did a nice job of kind of getting at, here are all the forces working against some things here. I'm curious then, Millie, from your perspective, is there anything you would add to that list?
I think that something that is really working against being honest is, like, sometimes when kids are struggling, getting sent to therapy or getting sent to that help can be scary. And, like, putting yourself forwards and knowing that this may happen is something that is scary. And sometimes you just have to do it. So for, like, any of the kids out there in the audience or any of the youth that are struggling with this, just do it. Just talk about it. Just be in that conversation. And it feels so much more free to be honest from my own experience. Like, just be honest about how you're feeling. And if you get sent to therapy, if you get put in a program or something like that, be honest and take the help and use it. Use the tools that you're given, because it will make your life better. It will work if you make it work.
Kind of amongst peers, in let's say the high school age,
Yeah.
Is there still stigma then?
Yeah, there is still stigma. It's not as great as I think it is among adults, and it's still there. There's still those kids who you know are kind of struggling with themselves, but they're still making fun of the videos that they show to, like, educate on suicide prevention. They're still making fun of, like, somebody saying that they went to therapy. They're still, like, making jokes about this stuff, and it's not really funny. It's not a joke at all. It's a very serious thing, and people are still kind of stigmatized against it, even if it's not as much as it was before.
And then, how do you address that as a peer?
When somebody is laughing about it or like making fun of it. I just ignore it. I don't really address it because that's what they want, is they want that attention, and I don't give it to them because it's not a funny joke.
Yeah. Well, and as we've kind of talked about having the conversation and ways to tailor the conversation a little bit, I want to talk about solutions, because that's why we have the four of you up here, because there are some creative things happening, and I guess, not to monopolize you, but Millie, I'll start with you and kind of just go down the line and be like, what have you noticed has been highly effective, or what is Hay working on that you're excited about, that more people should know about?
Okay, I'm really, really excited about we are currently working on putting out like the definition of a safe and trusted adult, and we're working on like a video that will get around and like show adults how to be that safe and trusted adult, so that there can be more of those, because that is something super, super important to a lot of kids, is just having that adult that they can talk to, knowing that they're safe, knowing that their information will not be shared or like used against them in any way, just having that. We're also working on finding some safe spaces, like safe third spaces, so safe spaces outside of home and work or school. We're currently like in the process of making like a way to like certify these safe spaces and find a way to show kids that, hey, this is a place you can go if you need somewhere to be outside of home and school, because it can be exhausting and boring to just be in the same two places all of the time. And like you need a place to hang out with your friends that's outside of their home and outside of your home, because you don't want to be in the same environment. Environment changes are important to people's brains. Like that's an important thing. So those are some things that we're working on.
Very cool. Crystal, I'll have you kind of tee up. What do you see as creative coming down the pike, or that more people should know exists?
Yeah, absolutely. So CHNK offers very intensive services kind of across a continuum of care. So what that means is that we offer residential services for children that need that, but we also offer a lot of intensive, so lots of hours per week with lots of support, services in the prevention of hospitalization or residential care. And a lot of those services are embedded within children's schools, because there are a lot of barriers. I really liked what you said, Brittany, at the beginning about just adding stress to the plate. And therapy can be a component of that when a child has a very rigorous schedule, or they're just participating in school and they don't want to do something after school. We do offer as an option the opportunity for children to access those school-based services. That said, I do think what you said is important in terms of stigma of peers. It's not a good fit for everybody. I think sometimes parents are like, they offer it at your school. Come on, go, participate it at school. But that can be embarrassing for young people, and so we have outpatient offices. The other thing that I think is so important, we've got our banner in the back that says CHNK loves equally, but we're an all children, all families certified organization, which means that basically all of our staff, not just our therapists, everybody that works in our organization is trained in culturally competent care for LGBTQ youth. And so when we think about youth mental health, appropriate care for LGBTQ youth and other underrepresented populations is a really important part of the conversation, because those individuals are more vulnerable.
Ross, I'll
Really appreciate
same
that.
question to you.
Yeah, Millie did a wonderful job talking about some of the initiatives that Hay is undertaking. One more I'll just add to that, which is really about kind of how do we shape the environments around young people, the adults that are in their lives, right, the spaces in our communities, to be more centered based on what youth are asking for, right? To be places of belonging and connection and wellness. And that is really exciting work that our youth leaders are leading. In addition to that, they've really helped us focus in on schools, right? Schools are a place where our young people spend a lot of their time. And have built a model called Schools of Wellness that kind of looks comprehensively at the school environment, not just for the students, but for the teachers and the staff as well. And what are all the components that need to be in place to make sure that that's a school environment that is fostering wellness and belonging and connection and offering mental health support from prevention through treatment. And what gives me, Evan, a lot of hope is that we're just about to roll out a pilot of about a dozen schools across the tri-state region to really pilot this model. And there's a lot that schools are dealing with right now. a lot of pressures, a lot of challenges. So we were uncertain as to whether schools were going to raise their hands to be a part of this program. We had nearly 50 schools from our region say, I want to be a part of that, right? Because they're desperate for support. They know that their students need social emotional support so that they can thrive in the classroom. So the interest that we have across our region in being a part of this effort gives me a lot of hope. And we're going to get started with a smaller group to really kind of test out and perfect this model and then expand it to other schools. But that's another key initiative where we're trying to, again, shape the environments around our young people to be more conducive to their mental health and prevention ultimately, so that we get more upstream, right? Our environments are fostering wellness so they ultimately can thrive.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that is how do you do that? So what's involved in that pilot program then for those schools?
So for the first step, once we select the schools, is going to be to kind of go through an assessment to really understand of all the components of best practices, right, that schools could have in place. Where are they? Were they doing well? Where do they need some support? And then we have, literally dozens of organizations in our community that offer different types of support. So we're going to do some matchmaking, right, based on where the school needs to really shore up. Is it around teacher wellness? Is it around more safe spaces in the school building? Is it more around getting partnerships with mental health providers? Is it around suicide prevention? Based on what the schools need, right? We have a whole network of organizations, including St. E's and Children's Home and many others that are ready to partner and provide support. So we're going to do some assessment, understand where the gap is, matchmake, provide some resources to help them do that, and then ultimately measure how it's doing. Our kids ultimately in a better place.
And then Brittany, the version of this question for you is, I think, what have you noticed works? I guess we used to in TV, there was a franchise long ago called What's Working, right? When you see improvements, what tends to work? I'm sure it's different for every kid.
Like as far as progress in their therapy?
Yeah. And just like overall, because there is a moment where you can see a change.
Absolutely. I love when I'm able to do graduation sessions. I tell patients all the time, like, it's great if you need me, it's great if you don't, and I don't want to create problems if there's not problems. If they're coming in and things are great, that's awesome. I will say the biggest thing that I'm seeing growth and progress in is, one, they're doing the work. Like, they're doing the work in between sessions. And to speak on something earlier, I tell my patients all the time, and even when I, have worked in other areas as well too with therapy, I'm only seeing you X amount of times a week or a month or, whatever. Your parents are with you 24/7, right? Like, or the teachers or whoever, right? So what are they doing to help encourage in between? I can't handhold as a therapist as much as I want to sometimes, but I really put that onto the parents. So I do a lot of parent education training and support on helping, if it's mom and dad or aunts or uncles or grandparents or whoever they're living with, of doing that work in between. I teach the parents cognitive behavioral therapy skills kind of in those first couple of sessions before I start seeing the kids privately, because I'm like, hey guys, if you see that they're stuck in this negative thought cycle, challenge it. Be like, hey, it seems you're stuck. What's a positive twist to this? Because you guys are at the forefront, like you're guys at the front line. I tell people all the time, you're the expert of your child, not me. You are. So, I'm just in the passenger seat kind of helping guide, but, you guys are kind of driving that car most of the time, and I tell my kids that too. Like, you're the only one that's in your head. You're the only one that can challenge the thinking. So I think the boundaries, learning boundaries, effective communication, and then the parents actually doing some of the work with the kid, like that's where I see progress. That's when I'm able to graduate and have them kind of have a break from therapy intermittently or whatever they need, is because there's actually work being done. Like, they're doing the work. They're challenging, they're having conversations with their peers, they're taking breaks from social media.
Great. I only have a couple more questions. I want to remind everyone, use Pigeonhole and that QR code on the back or if you're streaming us, you've got the link to Pigeonhole to put your questions in. A lot of really good questions in there already, so I'm gonna get to those in a minute. But this is a little bit more maybe policy question, which is, I feel like we have heard for years that there's a shortage of mental health providers. Is that still true? If it is, how bad is it? And how do you go around and how can we reverse that in greater Cincinnati, in northern Kentucky?
I think it's not so much true. I think it's an excuse.
Okay.
A lot of the times, because there are people out there, and I think some people get really kind of honed in on they only want this or they only want that, but part of therapy too is breaking out of your comfort zone and challenging yourself a little bit. If you have to drive an extra 10 minutes, drive an extra 10 minutes, or get on a wait list. People provide wait lists and stuff, but I think it's out there. Like I said, it's expanded. I have a lot of community partners that we refer to. It's just a matter of maybe being more open to other options than what you think you are used to or what you don't know. Like there's a lot of agencies out there that's been around for a long time, but there's also a lot of new ones. There's private practice people that, I tell people all the time, contact your insurance. Your insurance is gonna tell you who's paneled with your insurance, and there's people paneled that I might not even know that's on my list, because there really is that much out there. So, and video visits, telemedicine is expanded as well too. So I think there are options. I think it's an excuse sometimes to just not challenge it a little bit more. Yeah.
I think that it really still is true. I personally have even had a really, really hard time finding providers that I'm comfortable going to, or because I feel like therapy you do need to step out of your comfort zone, and there needs to be some comfort there. You can't just go completely crazy. You can't find this random person from a random, you need an info session to start, and those are really hard to schedule with everybody. You need to be on a wait list for 6 weeks, and then you need to meet, and then you need to, there's so many hoops to jump through, and a lot of people take different insurance, a lot of people don't take insurance. Some places are just completely too far, because I feel like a lot of people don't consider some people who don't have transportation to those places, some people who can't get there because of their school hours or their work hours, and it's just not possible for them to get there before because they have things after school that they're doing, and they don't want to miss out on those things.
Right. Because that's their connection point.
Because that's their connection point, that's their social life. They don't want to lose their social life because they're trying to improve their mental health. So I think that it's really important for somebody to be within their location zone and their comfort zone that they're willing to stretch to for therapy. So I think that there is a need for more therapists in this area and other areas, so that kids can get therapy comfortably and not have to stretch so far.
Ease of access.
Absolutely, yeah.
I can definitely add to that. I think I agree with both of what you all are saying in terms of the availability of providers for certain payer types. So if you are eligible to have private pay or you do have commercial insurance, there's certainly many more providers than they are if you have Medicaid. And so particularly with children and adolescents with a Medicaid card, there is an absence of providers, very long wait lists. And I really like what you were saying. I think it's so important to be able to select the appropriate provider that fits with your needs and with that of your family. But sometimes after you've been on a waiting list for a period of time, you're accepting first available, and okay, I got in with somebody, and now I'm going to go down this road with this person, even if the fit doesn't feel right. So often what I'm hearing and working with students who are pursuing their master's in social work or other disciplines, I'm a social worker, so typically my experience is with that population. But there is an increased interest in working for a private practice, but so often in private practice settings, they don't accept Medicaid. And so a unique example or an opportunity for alleviating some of this is agencies partnering with local universities to establish a pipeline of being able to hire students and bring them on board to increase the amount of providers that are willing to accept Medicaid.
Evan, you preface a question with the comment that this might be a policy question, and it absolutely is. I agree with everyone. We've heard, one, there has been increased access, right? More providers, especially with telehealth, more options. But we hear time and time again from folks, and if anyone here has tried to navigate the mental health system, I mean, you'll know it's maddening. Not only to find the appropriate provider that you can establish a relationship with and feel comfortable with, which is very important, but one that you can pay for. To all the points that you made, what we hear time and time again, because as a society we have still undervalued mental health compared to physical health, even though it's the same body. Medicaid reimbursement is insufficient. Oftentimes private insurance is insufficient to cover costs, so that we end up with providers not able to pay adequate wages to hire new social workers and counselors after they've gone through a tremendous amount of education and training. So we're undervaluing the field, right? Folks that are doing incredibly difficult work and with a high rate of burnout because of that. And that's a policy choice, right? And you know, not only around Medicaid itself, but around, I don't want to get too wonky, but parity, right? It's on the law, it's federal law that insurance providers have to cover physical health at the same rate that they cover mental health, but it's rarely enforced. And we know even many examples of private insurance providers that again, aren't paying adequate for the services that are being provided, so that we even have many examples of private practice that don't even take private insurance, right? It's basically pay to play, right? It's a fee-based service, which, as we would all know, is tremendously unfair and unequal. Only those who can pay can get access to it. So there are many policy components to that, Evan, that we all need to advocate for and help our elected officials understand that this is a critical part of our healthcare system, right? That mental health should be accessible and affordable in a culturally relevant way for all of us.
I was going to ask, how do we fix it? But I don't know if we have the time to to sit here all night unless someone wants to. But
I did want to add to that too. I know specifically with St. Elizabeth, we have like financial hardship applications and things like that too that people can apply for if there is any challenges with like paying for those mental health services as well. Yeah.
And so maybe my better question, instead of how to fix it, is, are there places to look that can make it easier or less of a burden, or can kind of clear the way better than just the Google search of, I don't know where to look, how do I start? Are there ways to help at least maybe cut through some of that?
Yeah, so this is one of the initiatives also that we're working on through HAY, is how to make that process as easy as possible to find appropriate help. We have some tremendous resources already on the Kentucky side. Find Help Now, of course 211. I know 211's in the house as a one-stop shop for many social services and human services. On the Ohio side, MindPeace is an organization that has a tremendous directory of providers that are available. We're actually actively working with all those folks right now to try to integrate them in a way that you can just literally call 211 and they can help get you, navigate you to the right appropriate service. We talked earlier about 988, right, being the call for mental health support, 911 for emergency support, 211 is just that number 2 for any kind of social needs. So we're trying to make sure that those resources around mental and behavioral health are robust in that system as well. But we have some already opportunities. Find Help Now in Kentucky, MindPeace in Ohio, always the foundation of 211 to reach out.
I want to get, this kind of provides a decent transition. I want to get to some of the audience questions because there are a lot of questions in here, and the first one that has popped up is from a young person with mental health issues. They say, my biggest barrier was always not knowing how to say something. what would you want to say to youth not knowing to reach out about mental health?
So for this question, I would say what I did a lot of the time to reach out about things was I would write a letter. I would just like write it down as many times as I needed to until it felt right. And then I would like slip that letter on my parents' nightstand or like leave it on the kitchen table, or so then it wasn't face to face and there wasn't as much of a chance for you to like missay something, and you could write it down as many times as you needed to be able to say something. So that's just my little piece of advice.
I love that, Millie. I encourage that a lot because the verbal conversation, like a lot of these kids don't have the language. We get face to face with these adults, and again, the thoughts, I'm gonna get in trouble, they're gonna get mad at me, they're gonna dismiss me, I'm gonna get invalidated. And I encourage that all the time, writing. I even tell parents to have like an open journal concept with their kid back and forth. That way they can write and answer when they can. The younger kids, draw a picture. I have kids all the time, like what their dreams were about or what they're struggling with. Like draw a picture. I'm able to decipher pretty well. They're good. They're good, creative about like what's going on. And I tell parents to do that at home. If they're angry, if they're having a melt, have them go draw a picture of what they're mad about. Like maybe you can understand because they don't have the words. They don't have that verbiage to say I feel X, Y, and Z because of this. So yeah, drawing, writing. There's other avenues. You don't have to have that face-to-face conversation if you're not ready. I have kids write me letters and bring to therapy, and they just like read this, and then I'm read, and then we'll talk about it. They just didn't want to say it to me, So yeah.
I would suggest practicing that conversation with safe adults, and it might not be the parents. We're talking about stigma, and so certainly we have families that are dealing with lots of stigma within their environment, and so thinking about, okay, who is a safe person that I could potentially have this conversation with, and trying it out with that person. Eventually, obviously, we're going to be looping in the parents because we're going to be accessing care, but practicing that a little bit. And also thinking about specially trained individuals that children typically have access to, like guidance counselors or school staff, who within that setting does the child feel comfortable enough with to reach out to potentially have a conversation. But I think the key here is say something, but keep saying something until you're able to access the support.
And I think to the question, sometimes it's hard to start, let alone say it again and again, aside from writing a letter, which I think is just fiendishly clever. That's so good as someone who writes for a living. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Do you have any other advice? Like how do you start the conversation? How does someone who's struggling already start that conversation?
I think simple 4 words. Hey, I'm not okay. Or 3 words. That's 3 words. Sorry. Hey, I'm not okay. Like I think that can just open it up. Like I'm struggling. I'm not like it doesn't have to be full sentences or paragraphs. Just like I'm kind of struggling. I'm not okay. Something feels weird. Something's off. Something that isn't normal. Like just It doesn't have. We overcomplicate things. It doesn't have to be.
On the other side of the conversation too, right? Whether it's parents or other adults, just as Brittany said in the beginning, get involved, right? Get in their business, which I love having 3 teenage boys. That's not always easy, but I try to pry as much as I can. I just last week learned about a new national campaign that I'm really excited about. It's called Just Ask. So Showtime and MTV and a national youth mental health organization called Active Minds came together, and they're trying to build what is the equivalent to the stop, drop, and roll for mental health. So stop, drop, and roll, right? Every single one of us learned that, yet how many of us have actually been on fire? Like, it's such a random prevention message for such a rare, hopefully rare occasion, yet how many of us have had somebody in our life struggling mentally? Every single one of us, right? So just ask, ASK, A standing for acknowledge, ask for support, and K for keep in touch. That's all you have to do. Just ask, right? Acknowledge, non-judgmentally. I hear that you're not okay, right? Tell me more. How can I support you, right? And then keep in touch. Follow up in a couple days. If that message, right, just ask, acknowledge, support, keep in touch. If every one of us knew that, as much as we know stop, drop, and roll, right, that's the first step, right, that all of us need to be a support and to walk alongside anybody, whether it's our kids or our friends or our colleagues that are struggling. So I want to get this out everywhere because it's so easy to understand, right? And it's simple to the point around simple, clear solutions, right? If every one of us, if every school could teach it, right? I think we'd be all better equipped to show up in a way that can provide support.
Well, and luckily for us, there will be a test at the door, so I hope you're taking notes. That actually led me, it was a perfect pivot because the next highest rated question is that flip side. So we kind of talked about how do I find a way to ask for help. The question from the audience is how can we approach our child with questions about suicidal thoughts without causing them to shut down emotionally?
I loved what Brittany had talked about at the beginning about the establishment of the relationship and just the simple mechanisms of like, okay, 10 minutes of quality time a day. So this is obviously a very personal and potentially deeply painful topic that we all keep very close to the vest. And so having that foundation of a relationship and talking about typical topics and keeping the lines of communication open so that when the difficult day comes or when the challenge or the crises or the hard topics come, that you've already established that pipeline. So you know, or your child knows, okay, this is a safe nightstand to place my letter on. So I think that's a really important component is maintaining the relationship and also allowing opportunities to talk about mental health, setting the tone for that, acknowledging that you're struggling. As a parent sometimes, man, I'm having a difficult day. I'm feeling really frustrated, particularly, Brittany, I keep pointing to you. But what you had said earlier about no parent's perfect, right? So engaging in the repair, that's so important and continuing to be a safe adult for your child because you're not going to be perfect all the time, or at least I'm not. If you are, tell me how you're doing it so that I can follow. But engaging in that repair so that the relationship is there when the difficult times come to be able to talk about hard topics.
Yeah, I really, really agree with that. I would just say, like, kind of what you said, be there with your kid before you start talking about these super painful topics. Like, try and build that relationship, try and learn from them. Like, if they're in treatment, ask them what you're learning about. Like, what are these skills? Work on your mental health with your kid so that they know that you're also working on that and you're also being a part of this journey and you're also, like, struggling. Like, be real with your kid, be open, let them know that you're not perfect, you're not like perfectly mentally like wonderful, you're not living in a perfectly peaceful world, like nobody is. So be open with your kid, let them know, like you said, like this is a safe place for me to put that letter, this is a safe time for me to say I'm not okay. And if they're not saying that, start that conversation. Just, are you okay? I've noticed you've been struggling. Like, if you're not comfortable talking about it with me, that's okay. I just am worried about you. Just be open with your kid about your thoughts on what's kind of going on.
And I think the underlying maybe, and I hope I'm not reading too much into this question, but it's something, Brittany, the underlying, I think, fear in this question is something that you mentioned is I don't want to plant the seed. I don't want to have a conversation about are you having suicidal thoughts if the answer was no, and now there's like the fear that now I've planted the seed.
Right. Yeah, and I just don't think we should focus on that piece more so than if I don't say this, what's going to happen? If I don't ask this question, I'd rather ask the question and make them really uncomfortable than ignore that, especially if you have an inkling that they're not okay, or if you read something in their phone, right? Like that's where a lot of parents actually find out information about what's going on with their kids because they see a text conversation between a friend that, hey, I'm not okay, or I'm having these thoughts. And starting conversations with your kids about those big emotions, it could look like this, like, hey, you know what, like mom feels really frustrated sometimes and I get really in my head, or, you know, this kind of stuff really bothers me. Like, do you ever feel like that? Do you ever have times where you just kind of wish like everybody would just go away, or, you know, you just weren't here? That's a part, you know, open up the conversation with that. Be, again, vulnerability of like, gosh, I get really mad when people are disrespectful to me. It just makes me feel like I don't exist, you know, or everybody's ignoring me. Do you ever feel like that? Because chances are they are. Like I said, you're not really planting a seed. The seeds are there, guys. Like the stuff that they hear in school, the stuff that they hear on the bus, the stuff that they're hearing out at the parks, the community, social media, like the seeds are there. You're not planting anything. It's already there. So.
One resource, another resource that I just recently came across that I've used as a parent with my teenage boys, the Ad Council, national organization, created a resource called Sound It Out Together. So sounditouttogether.org. Tremendous resources for parents with specific question prompts, tools, resources for talking to their kids about emotional issues. Like very practical and helpful advice and guidance, all backed by research, very aligned with the messages that we're sharing today, but a very actionable set of resources that parents can use to know what to say, how to ask the question, how to follow up in a way that's going to get to those deeper conversations. And I think starting with acknowledging where you're struggling, right?
Yeah.
Because what mental health is not is just feeling good all the time or feeling happy all the time. It's
Yeah.
about having the skills to cope with whatever life throws
Right.
your way. Like all of us, and especially teenagers, have big emotions, right? And that's normal, that's human. It's about having the skills to cope with them, right? So sharing with your kids how you deal with that,
Yeah.
and when you're struggling, what do you do to deal with that in a healthy way, hopefully, can
Yeah.
be the first step to establishing some trust.
I think aligning the values too, like your value as a parent, you might not be organized or, you know, on top of things all the time, but you might have a kid that gets anxious if they're running late, or they have a lot of schoolwork, or they have this, that, and if you're just like, oh, it's fine, whatever, you know, aligning that value and recognizing, I think my kids, you know, love language is physical touch, but I'm not really a hugger. So how do I make sure that that happens? Or, you know, my kid really likes to be on time, but I'm notoriously late all the time. Like, just having those conversations, hey, I recognize that we're not the same person. How can I make sure that I'm not causing you this stress either because of my struggles, or because my values just aren't really, I'm not seeing that we're aligning with that too. So I think those conversations are important as well.
We've got time for one more audience question, and I may or may not have saved my favorite for last because it's a hard question. Should parents, we talked about screens, social media, phones. Should parents monitor phones?
Yes.
How
Yes.
much? How often? What does that look like?
I think just being open with your kid about it. I know that's hard. I know. I know, like, that's not something that any of the kids will want to hear is like, oh, yes, another, like, young person is saying, yes, monitor phones. That's not what I want to hear. And it's going to help you. Social media can be very damaging, like, in so many different ways. Like, there are communities on social media that are romanticizing mental health issues and making kids want to be mentally ill because it's so beautiful in this person. And, like, no. And there are helpful ways that, so like, there are ways that social media can be helpful. There are people who are sharing their recovery stories that are empowering other people to get better. And there are people who are, like, reaching out to other people and saying, hey, are you okay, based on, like, some comment they made, like, completely thinking no one would ever see it, and, like, they're, like, reaching out and saying, hey, are you okay, and giving them a space to talk. Because sometimes that is what somebody needs, is to talk to somebody that they know will not, like, this will not impact them in their real life. Like, this is completely disconnected from my real life, and that's sometimes what you need, is to just talk about everything with somebody you don't really know, so that it's not directly, like, impacting you. So And yes, reach out to people if you're like feeling like you need, like feeling like you're hurting yourself or you're going to hurt somebody. Reach out to the proper people. And sometimes it's helpful to reach out to somebody that isn't directly in front of you and is online. Sometimes that's helpful.
How much, how often, how parents of the panel, how much is too much?
Yeah, so 2
Is
things.
it too much?
I do think it's very important to monitor, but I also think that the cadence is dictated by what you find. So if you're finding something concerning, okay, then look a little further and look a little more frequently. But if you're not seeing anything concerning, then yeah, you're still monitoring that, but the frequency needs to decrease. The other really important piece of that is what are you going to do with the information when you see it? So if you see that your child is struggling with mental health issues, but simultaneously in reviewing that, you're seeing something else that doesn't line up with your family values, like you're seeing something that's alluding to substance use, what are you going to do? Are you going to focus on you're in big trouble because I just found this? Or are you going to focus on I care about you and I'm concerned? And that's going to get addressed somewhere in the conversation, but maybe not right now. So I think as you observe the phone, as you monitor the phone and see different things, it's really important. You talked about this earlier, Brittany, a little bit about we can't pour from an empty cup. So you observe this, then you're going to take a minute for self-care, decide how you want to proactively respond to everything, and then do it from a place of intention as opposed to reactivity.
So a book I'd recommend if you haven't read it, Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt, a New York Times bestseller. We just had him actually on a virtual meeting with about 200 school leaders from across our region. And he lays out all the evidence that there's no question that unfettered access to social media and smartphones has had a negative impact. I think Millie made some really good points around it's not all bad, right? There's important connection, right, and belonging that can happen online. So it's a more nuanced conversation, but there's I think the evidence is clear that the way social media and smartphone access has become ubiquitous. It's become a significant contributor to. I mean, if you just think about it, right? The world and built into algorithms that are meant to keep you addicted and feeding you negative information time and time again is just unfettered access to that, right? Nonstop. I mean, no question that it's going to have a negative impact to the comparison culture, all these things, right? He says 4 things need to happen that could dramatically impact the youth mental health crisis. 1, parents, no smartphones till high school, right? You know, old-fashioned flip phones, right? But no smartphones till high school. No social media till 16. That's hard, and I failed on that as a parent. No social media till 16. No phones in schools, period. No, like 0 phones in schools, and some schools across our region are starting to go down that path. And the last, that should all create more time for unstructured connection, time for human connection and play. His whole point is that over the last, since the rise of smartphones, online access to unfettered information, most of it negative, has replaced actual human connection time, unstructured play time. In the real world, right? Whereas parents are limiting access to just roaming the streets and playing in parks, and right, but giving them completely unfettered access to strangers across the world and negative information on a smartphone. And this is not a good combination, right? So replace the time on the screens with time in person, connecting and playing for younger kids, and connecting, hanging out, building community as older kids. That'll help us go a long way towards addressing this crisis.
And to that, we want kids to be bored, guys. Like, boredom is not a negative emotion. Boredom creates creativity and imagination. But if we never allow them to be bored because we just have this unlimited access to screens, phones, whatever, then they don't have that foundation. There's social skills, there's a lot, and there is definitely, yes, positives to stuff that they can do online. But I think with everything that we've talked about tonight too, setting a foundation in the very beginning, then by the time your kid is a teenager, you might not really need to worry because you've already instilled such good values in them that they're gonna be able to have a good boundaries with their social media, with their phone. They're gonna be able to handle these difficult conversations or things that they're seeing online and be like, you know what, nope, that's unhealthy, that's not for me. That's not something I know I should be looking at. if we set a foundation, and it starts in infancy, like having a schedule and routine, and again, like teaching these toddlers to regulate their little emotions. The foundation is so important with that. So I think if that's set, we don't have to worry so much about that screen and access to the phones too. But what I see a lot of the times is it's bad. It's already bad. Parents are coming in, they're frustrated, they're upset, and it's just kind of almost too far gone to where it takes a lot of work to get it back on a healthier track. Or we expect these kids to come to us and talk to us about maybe what they're seeing online if it was not good, or if they get caught up in inappropriate stuff or whatever. Like, you don't have that foundation set for them to be trusting to come to you, or you're not, like, they just don't feel safe to come to you too. So yes, I think the answer, look at the phones. There's, again, it's individual, it's circumstantial. I say nothing's ever a cookie cutter approach. It's what works best for your kid, what works best for your family. But yeah.
I just found a whole other page of great audience questions, but some of them, there are a lot of folks here or watching perhaps who want to know how to get involved. They care, and they want to know how to get involved, and I think that is the best way to wrap this up so that I can give you all plenty of time to interact with our panelists. Maybe it's one-on-one, get back to interact with some of the folks who are here in the room, some of these groups that have resources available, or also some expertise as well, because there are a whole bunch of really good questions that was on a different page that I didn't even see. So, and we are truly at time, but I'm going to take an audience question that I think is a great way to wrap this up, and it is, as a community member, I care about our youth and how they're prepared to shape the future. What can I do to support parents, youth, and our community? And that's a whole ecosystem, right, around our families in this area. And I'm going to go long and work our way back to Millie. I'll give you the last word.
Okay, so what can you do to help parents, youth, and like kind of general, right? I think education is super important. Keep getting the statistics out there, keep getting the conversations out there of how to, like what we've talked about all night, like, hey, this is the best ways to approach. If you have personal connections with, adults in the community as well too, start asking those questions. Hey, like, what kids are in your life and what's going on with them, and how do you feel like you're influencing them positively, negatively? What kind of supports do you feel like they need, or how can I help get you supports? And with that too, in the community, like, you can call me, anybody, like, I'll get you connected. That's one of the things I'm really passionate about too, is working with the community partners in the area. That way I call it like a warm handoff. If it's not going to be with me, I'm going to do a personal internal referral to people that I know that I think is going to be great fits, and what you're looking for, and kind of help with that too. So if you're in the community, do that. Partner, like, learn what resources are in the area. Go volunteer, go do whatever. That way you can give those resources out to people, because there are a lot out there, and if there are barriers, again, there's resources for barriers as well too. So I think that would be a really good start.
I call this the homework portion for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And also, speaking of homework, in Pigeonhole, if you've been using Pigeonhole, there is a closing question that has opened. It is, we want to know what the most important thing or the most impactful thing that you have learned from tonight. So as we listen to sort of the rest of these answers, take a minute and play around in that. Ross, what would you say how can people get involved to support youth and families?
Two things. First, there's plenty of opportunity for the community to join in on the Hey Greater Cincinnati movement. HopefulEmpoweredYouth.org. I keep sending people to the web, but that's how we access information. HopefulEmpoweredYouth.org is the Hey Greater Cincinnati website, and you can sign up to get involved. We have literally hundreds of people, organizations that are involved in different work streams, all based on what the youth are telling us they need and deserve for our region. So there are plenty of opportunities for you to get plugged into the Hey movement. Second thing, spread the word about this Just Ask campaign. So simple. Just ask, right? I mean, I want this to catch on and go viral in our community, because I think it's so actionable, clear about what we can all do to support not just kids, but each other around our mental health. So spread the word about Just Ask.
Educate yourself, as Brittany mentioned, and I also love what you had shared, but QPR training, question, persuade, refer. I always want to say respond, but it's refer. But that's often widely available within communities. CHNK is currently hosting a QPR training, helps you to respond appropriately when a child in your life is struggling, gives you all of the resources, so just an incredible opportunity.
And Millie, I didn't want to like tokenize you, but I had said when Megan and Lacey came to me, I said, I'll only do it if there is actually like a teen on this panel, because your voice is critically important. How can people support your peers?
Kind of like everybody has said, get educated, take a training, volunteer, do whatever you need to do, get educated on the topic, and then talk about it. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. Until everybody's sick of it, just keep talking about it. If you keep talking about it, kids will know that you're educated on it, they will know that you're a safe space, they will know, and just like act like a normal person. Don't be crazy, just be a person and talk about it and be open about it and just let people know that you're there to be a safe space and just keep talking about it. just keep going.
Yeah. Go forth. That's your homework, right? Is go forth and talk about it. So it is about 7:30 now. Our friends in the back I think are here for the next 30 minutes, maybe longer if they need to be. Our panelists will be here because I know there are a ton of really good questions still in here. So like, please, if I didn't see it or I skipped over it because it didn't pop up high enough, please stay and ask the questions. And remember, I think it's important to end with this, particularly tonight. We've given you a lot of resources, but for anyone listening who may be struggling, remember that there's a lot of people in this room right now on this stage who love you and we need you here. So just remember that, like, we're all here for you. Stay, talk to our panelists. Give it up for our panelists one more time. Brittany, Ross, Crystal, Millie. Use these resources, and we will see you at our next Link NKY Community Conversation, same place here in June, and we'll be talking about housing in Northern Kentucky. So we'll see you then. Thank you, guys.